Now, when it comes to this troubling age-old question of why would God allow evil and suffering, there's really two parts to it. The first is the human factor, the evil that we inflict upon each other, and I briefly attempted to cover that in part one. But then there's the second part. What about things beyond human control? Natural disasters, hurricanes, earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes. Why doesn't God do anything to stop those?
Now, what I find fascinating about the basic laws of physics is that the very laws affecting our world would be the same as those affecting another world in a distant galaxy hundreds of millions of light years away from us. For example, when a gas or liquid is heated, it will rise, and as it rises, it cools and then falls back down, and the cycle gets repeated. And this heating and cooling, rising and falling, is essential for life here on Earth. Water evaporates, rises up into the sky, condenses and forms into clouds, and then falls back to the Earth as rain. Unfortunately, as with everything, there's a flip side. Violent massive storms form over warm, moist ocean air that we either call hurricanes, typhoons, or cyclones. And these things happen far more frequently than most people realize. Right at this moment, as I'm filming this episode, there are 3 such violent storms in the Pacific and 1 in the Atlantic. Fortunately, very few ever hit landfall. Yet when one does and causes a lot of death and destruction, that seems to be the only time that we ask, why does God allow such violent storms to take place? So okay, if you were God, how would you stop these violent storms from forming? I suppose that since they form over the oceans, you could get rid of the oceans, but life as we know it on planet Earth would cease. You could stop this cycle of heat rising and then falling, but then we wouldn't have rain. So it seems that stopping these violent storms from taking place is rather complicated, even if you're God. And this whole cycle of heat rising, cooling, and then falling back down is happening right under our feet. Literally. Now, of course, I am simplifying things here, but roughly speaking, if the Earth was the size of this basketball, the skin of the ball would represent the Earth's hardened outer crust, and this soft ball would represent the Earth's inner core, which scientists have recently discovered to be as hot as the surface of the sun. Now, the Earth's crust is broken up into various large plates, much like a giant jigsaw puzzle. And these plates float on top of superheated rock. Now, due to the heating and cooling, rising and falling effect, these plates grind against one another, causing the over 100,000 earthquakes that are strong enough to be felt every year. So, why does God allow earthquakes? Well, again, if you were God, what would you do? I suppose you could cool the Earth's inner core, but that would actually end up creating more problems than it would actually solve. Scientists believe that the Earth's core is made up mostly of iron and is undergoing radioactive decay, thus one reason for its intense heat. But this produces a magnetic field around the Earth, protecting us from the powerful solar wind and radiation from the sun. Without it, life, at least on the surface, simply wouldn't survive. And because our planet is geologically active, geologists refer to our planet as living, compared to, say, the moon, which is geologically dead. Yet it's precisely because our planet is geologically active that it's able to support the life that it does. And that's one of the great paradoxes about life. It would seem that life can only take place upon a planet where natural disasters can occur. Hurricanes, volcanoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, these take place upon the Earth because, in a sense, the Earth is living. And only because it's living is it able to support life.
And the natural workings of our world are highly complex and intertwined, where changing one thing would create a domino effect upon everything else. And our planet isn't an island unto itself, but is in fact intertwined with the rest of the universe, where the same laws of physics are creating volcanic eruptions and violent storms on other worlds as well as our own.
Now, naturally, this all begs the question. If God exists, then couldn't he have simply designed a better universe? Perhaps, but this is the only universe that we can ever know or experience. It's the only universe that we can even attempt to make any sense out of. Thanks so much for watching. Now, as a former atheist, I know that most atheists see evil and suffering as a religious person's problem, not the problem of the atheist, and yet nothing could be further from the truth. So in next month's video, part 3, we're going to go where few atheists dare to tread. We're going to explore a universe where there is no God and yet a universe where obviously evil and suffering still exist, and what all of that would imply. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't already, please click on the subscribe button, and please share this video with other people. Thanks again for watching, and keep searching.